Well, it's nice to be on here with you. Thanks again for inviting me.
Yeah, of course. I can't remember like who followed who first, but I love your page. You're just really happy and you seem to really like love just your family and your kids. And I love like positivity and I feel like that's you and that's your page. So,
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I can't remember either, but when you followed me, I was like, "Oh my God, her page is great." Like for social media to be so like expansive and huge, you're really the first page I think I found that like caters to this community, which is wild. Like you really find out on social media that there's like a space for everybody. And I had never seen a space for law enforcement wives. So when I saw your page, I was like, oh no, awesome. And all of your content was like so many things, so many things that I never thought like I thought about, but it's like nobody ever, really put it into a video or just like a
yeah.
caption. And every single time you post something, I'm like, that is exactly it. I was like, and I've never, I never saw anybody else, post stuff like that. So it was great. It was great. All of your content is like amazing and always spot on.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. I didn't really know either. I did think it would be fun too because I love like mom reels. So that's what I used
Uh-huh.
to watch those and was like a huge fan. And then I was like, police wife life is funny. And I was in a low point. Like it was like
Mm-hmm.
2020 was really rough. And my husband is such a jokester and like that's just how we deal with stuff. So I was like, let me make funny reels about this crazy life. And then yeah, immediately, like I didn't know there was so many wives on here. So I just started getting like a lot of feedback. So I just kept going, you know?
Uh-huh. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Everything is like always, every time you post something, I think the funniest one I had to show my husband was the one where you were like, it was something where it was like, I can finally exhale. And they come in the house and you hear the boots and the Velcro. I was like, oh my God,
Oh, yeah.
hilarious.
Yeah. And well, okay, I have to be honest. Sometimes I make them for you guys because I make them for people that watch, right? Rick doesn't wear his uniform home, but the boots he does. Like he wears boots
Oh,
every day.
uh-huh.
But he doesn't, he gets changed at the station and then he dropped,
Mhm.
I don't even clean his uniforms. Okay, so that's true. I shouldn't admit that, but like he takes to the dry cleaner. So the only time I see him in uniform is if we go and it's like 45 minutes away where he works. So like we're an hour and a half with LA traffic. So we drive and see him. But yeah, that one I know other people talk about the Velcro thing.
Uh-huh.
I don't really know it, honestly.
No, that's hilarious. Well, how did you come up with that then? If you don't like, how did you think about that?
Um, I just talk to you and other people. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like
my God.
I'm always in the DMs like every day with people, and
Uh-huh.
then I think I've seen other people joke about the Velcro thing or just talk about it.
Wow. I've
But
never
yeah,
heard anybody talk about it. So when you posted that in the middle of the night, like anytime you would get home from any shift, I mean, whether it be 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, and I'm asleep and I hear that and I'm like, oh, I'm like, yes, time home. So it was hilarious. So yeah, it's amazing how you come up with that stuff. And I know so many wives find it relatable for
yeah, yeah. And I mean, the boots are one thing though, because literally, like right here, I was just gonna say, like, Rick was cleaning his boots, and like right next to the couch is like shoe polish. So I do have
yes,
that, and like other things, like just holsters around the house, like other things, that
yes.
always, yeah, it's definitely, just a part of our home.
No,
But
that's great. It's that's great. I love it.
yeah. Uh, so yeah, I feel like a big part for me, like now that I kind of like have this account and everything and people follow me was talking about like the hard times and like being a mom
Hmm.
and being a mom is amazing and I can tell that you love it, but
Yeah.
like I think we all can acknowledge that there's unique things about being a police wife or shift work wife.
Yeah.
And like, I love that you're open about motherhood because actually some other police wives, they don't post their children at all, like, because of privacy.
Mhm. Yeah.
And, but yeah, so, can you speak to that and like, and being open, like you're open about it and, your husband's probably okay with it, I would assume and all that. So,
Yeah, I guess, well, our platform kind of had started before he was a police officer, before he had kids. I think we just posted a lot about our relationship or just like, dating and then like into our engagement. So when we got engaged, a lot of, our, well, actually, when he proposed, the proposal in itself, like he posted it, and that went viral.
Oh,
So
wow.
a
Cool.
lot of our followers and our audience had started following us when we were
Oh,
dating and
yeah.
when we were engaged, because those videos went viral. And so like a lot of our things went viral when we were like
Oh,
post videos of each other, or like we had like
yeah.
a YouTube channel. I mean, it's still up, but we don't post it on there. A YouTube channel just posting about relationship stuff,
Yeah.
and that's where our audience started. So then when and at that time he was a teacher, you know what I mean, he has his master's in education, so he started teaching. And that's really where, you know, I guess our foundation started on social media. And then of course he went into the police academy for Wilmington, so he was a city police officer first before transferring to state. Now he's a state trooper. And then of course, you know, as life progresses, we have kids, and I guess we've been pretty open about our relationship. And so
Mhm.
it's pretty much just been our journey, and people have been following along. So I think it just came natural to share about our family and our children, because so many people were invested, you know, when we started. So it's kind of like they started seeing us dating, onto the engagement, into marriage, and then having kids. And then the cop stuff came. Well, no, he was a cop, I think, right before we had Madison. So it's just been pretty natural. I definitely do understand though people wanting the privacy, but
Yeah.
since his stuff is pretty open, and then his videos as a police officer have gone viral with
Oh,
him
wow.
doing the giving back to the community. A lot of things he's done in the community with the kids has gone viral. The basketball thing, meeting Steph Curry. So it's been very, you know, we've shared a lot and been
Yeah.
pretty open for the most part. So yeah, you know, as long as, you know, we're comfortable with sharing, I definitely don't mind sharing. I know a lot of people can relate, and I feel like it only helps, you know, to share and let people know that, you know, what they're going through is normal. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely.
That's how I felt. I feel like the more open I am, like that's where I get to learn about other people, because then they
Hmm.
message me and they're like, "Oh my gosh, me too," you know? And it's like
Yeah.
then I learn more and then I can serve more and like post the video about the Velcro like I learned from somebody else, you know, or like whatever things I learned from you guys I try to post. So
Yeah.
yeah, I agree. And I think I don't know, like we talked about the safety issue, Rick and I, and because some people
Hmm.
ask that, like, I try not to say exactly where we live, and LA has millions of people, so I'm like, you know, odds of you finding me.
Hmm.
But he's like, honestly, anybody, any haters could even follow him home. Like, he's paranoid about that sometimes from the station or whatever. And he's like, but he drives so far. He's like, I'd probably be able to tell. But he's like, anything can happen anytime. So we just don't live that way. We're like, we're afraid, you know, all the time. But
Yeah, no, I
yeah,
definitely
that
understand.
is,
It's a lot. It's a lot that goes on. And I think one thing, I know one thing I was concerned about privacy wise is when he worked in the city. I think we lived, well, when you're a city officer for the city of Wilmington where he was, you have to live within the city limits for a certain amount of time.
mm-hmm.
So we lived and we rented a home in the city, but we would post so many videos and stuff. And sometimes he would post like workout videos, and you could see, I mean, where we're from, Delaware is super small.
Yeah,
So if you knew and you were familiar with the area, you would know where we lived by the
yeah,
street.
yeah, yeah.
And yeah, and then when we had kids, it definitely was kind of like, and with his vehicle being parked outside, it was kind of just like,
Yeah.
not a fan. But then when we moved, it's definitely, we're more kind of like in a suburban area now, and like a different city, because as a state trooper, we don't have to live in those, you know, in that area anymore. But I definitely understand. It can be kind of, definitely with everything going on, it can be kind of scary sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How is it like where you guys are? Is the community overall like welcoming to police or hateful or just like neutral?
I think neutral. I feel like, I mean, I haven't, from what I see,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, you know, there's always going to be those people that are just like, oh, this police officer, or, you know, they tell the
Yeah,
stories
yeah.
of when they pull people over and how the people are cursing them out, like, yo, you don't have to do this. Or I even see stuff online of like people that, you know, I'm around, you
Mm-hmm.
know, they're people posting videos like, oh, this police officer, this. And I feel like that's common, but I do feel like they kind of do approach it where, and my husband kind of sees it as like, if you respect the person, you have a lot of control over how to de-escalate a situation. And I feel like when he has those interactions with people, he tries to be aware, like try to
Mm-hmm.
relate to them on a personal
Yeah.
level. So then when
Yeah.
he's interacting with them, he doesn't get a lot of like, I feel like after that, it kind of changes the narrative a little bit and people are a little bit receptive.
Yeah.
And so as he's been in the community too and been trying to like interact with kids and just other people in the community, it's kind of, you know, leveled out the tensions a little bit. I
Mm-hmm.
think it would
Yeah.
still be there just because of the climate we live in. But I don't feel like it's hostile. Like I do feel like
Yeah.
when we're out and people see him in uniform, I feel like they respect him. I haven't ever felt uncomfortable or disrespected. I feel like everybody, more so because they know him, runs up to him or has seen his face, runs up to him and is trying to talk. And for me, it's usually always like,
Mm.
okay, okay, or we're out in public and somebody talks to him. It's more so
Yeah.
just like, all right. It's never really, I haven't really had like a negative interaction at all, thankfully. How about you? How is it? How do you feel it is with you guys?
That's why I had such a rough time during like COVID because it was COVID and BLM and then like there was a lot of hateful, like I work at a liberal university in state in Southern California is very, very liberal and that's fine. But like I don't mind their values in general because when I'm a social worker in my background, so I'm like it fit in with that. But then I just didn't appreciate the hate. There was a ton of hateful comments on social media. I like left Facebook because of it. And so that was kind of rough. And then out here, yeah, I would say still now, like there's colleagues of mine that make negative comments and it's like, I think throughout like posting on here and finding this community, it's really helped me to feel more confident. If somebody says something, like I'm going to make sure that they know my husband's a cop and how I feel about it. Respectfully, like you're saying, respect is so important, but overall it is not. But we also live in a suburb. I don't feel like someone's gonna like physically attack me or something like that. No, or because people said they like took down their thin blue line, like police flags from their car. I didn't. Like I'm like I just don't feel like anybody would do anything bad to me, but they'll say things. So
Oh
yeah.
wow. Yeah, it's rough. It's rough. I do feel like it is the climate we live in, and with everything going on, there's so many narratives, but especially my husband and I, like we kind of had like more of a liberal background, and then it's crazy because it's just if for people that know us and have seen our journey, they'll probably it's probably like what like it's probably shocking, but now having seen this side and just really learning things for myself and seeing
Yeah.
things for myself, you kind
Yeah.
of see both sides and you're able to decipher and see the truths for yourself.
Yeah.
And it definitely is very eye-opening, definitely very eye-opening, but hopefully things get better and you feel more comfortable. I know you having this community definitely helps, and I think it's great. So yeah.
Yeah. And I have people, I just surround myself with people like in our lives here locally and then obviously online that are supportive. And like, I just don't entertain that. Like if you're going to post negative stuff about cops, I'm going to unfollow you. It doesn't mean
Yeah.
I don't like you, but I don't want to see it,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Nobody has time for the negativity. There's enough of it. And the
Yeah.
last place we want it is on our platforms. So
Yeah.
I totally understand for sure.
Somebody wrote, when your husbands go to work, do you all get nervous about possibly getting a call saying your husband was hurt, etc.? Do you want to speak to that, Simone? Oh no, I think I'm losing you. Hopefully you come back. This happened last time I went live. Such a bummer. Simone looks frozen to me. I don't know. You guys write in the chat if I'm frozen too. I'm not sure, but I'll speak to it if mine is still going, and hopefully she'll come back soon. Oh no, I lost her. Okay, I'm gonna invite her back on. And in the meantime, I'll speak to that. So yeah, I am not really a worrier. I don't sit around worry and think like negative things all day, but there are moments. Oh yeah, you're back.
Okay, there we go. I don't know what just happened. I think I tried to swipe the comments away so I can read because I can't see anything. So I think that's what it was. I think I tried to mess with the comments and swiped it off.
Oh shoot, that's fine. So yeah, do you want to speak to that about like, do you worry when your husband goes to work that something might happen to him?
I used to. I definitely, when we first lived in the city, it's totally different. I mean, in the city, we had one of his best friends was a police officer at the time, and we knew a couple of people, and there was, I feel like the past few years, there's just been increase in just like shootings and crime. It's just ridiculous. And then it was in the midst of the Black Lives Matter, the riots and everything that happened. And so I definitely used to be worried, and coming from somebody who's had like a history of mental health, issues. I've dealt with anxiety and depression in my past.
Mhm.
I was very aware of just trying to curb any anxiety. I have my coping mechanisms at this
Yeah.
point, and I've progressed in a point, but I had to be very aware to not let it, I couldn't spiral. And
Mhm.
for me, if you follow me, and I know you have you share a lot about faith, and for me, that is what kept me grounded. Like I just couldn't worry. I had to pray constantly and just pray over my husband, pray over my household, and just
Mhm.
we were very specific in our prayers. Like, what, God, give him wisdom to know where to go, what
Yeah.
to look at, who to entertain, who to stay away from, and just protect him. And I had to just
Mhm.
really put my trust in God, because if you
Yeah.
don't, you will spiral. Like your thoughts will just go to another place every night. I mean, think about it. Like if they don't come home, and if they're off at a certain time and then you don't hear anything from them, or you text back, you're like, are you on a call? And there will be times where, his friend will be working maybe the same time that he's working, and I would be worried and text him and be like, have you heard from Josh? Like, have you heard him on the radio? Like, is he on a call? And he'd be like, oh yeah, he's fine, he's here. And I think that kind of calmed me down. And after a while, I just had to be like, you know what? I cannot, I cannot be this worried every day. And I really just had to, trust God. That's
Yeah, you do.
honestly what I had to do. How about you?
Yeah, I agree. I do. I pray definitely. I pray every night. I'm like a quiet prayer. It's so funny. I told Rick, like, I just do it in my head to myself, and like he doesn't even know, like, on the nights he is home. But we're not like a very vocal family. He like grew up Catholic, and then I converted for him. I was raised a hippie. Like my parents are hippies from Hawaii, so it's a very different upbringing. But I always would pray as a kid because I knew other friends of mine that would. So I always like had this connection with God that I felt. And then it was cool that like Rick was Catholic, and I wanted to be the same as him and like learn, about him too.
Good.
So yeah, I mean, I definitely do that. And yeah, I don't sit around and worry. I never have, except when something specific happens, like
Mhm. Yeah.
a friend of his gets injured at work, or like during the riots, like I knew Rick was there, and it was really hard not to, like, after the kids would go to bed, I'd turn on the news and like try to see what was going on. And then but also it helps he's not a talker, and I think that does help. Like he doesn't
Mm,
bring it home, which
that's good.
there's pros and cons, because then sometimes I have no idea like what happened at work with him.
Yeah.
But yeah, that kind of helps because he doesn't make me worry either, like, oh, telling me all this stuff that's going on.
Hmm.
And then I think, like you were saying, that coping mechanisms, like kids help too, because you're just so busy. Like you're
Yeah.
just busy focused on them. You can't sit around being worried because you're trying to like just raise them and do things with them. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think somebody had said,
yeah.
they pray. Yeah. And that's definitely it. They pray. Yeah.
Mhm.
I definitely, I think we say our prayers, and then sometimes when he leaves, he'll pray with my daughter or my son. And
Nice.
I think that's great. So, oh, and somebody said they have their location on, and I didn't even think about that. The location, I think we had it on, and then when we changed our phones, we took it off.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
even if, like, let's say I look at the location and he's at a hospital, if
Mhm.
police officers are at hospitals all the time, because
Yeah.
they have to sometimes go there to either get like a statement, or they have to go there to make sure somebody's okay. So
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
know a lot of times it's like, and the times when he's at the hospital is funny, are actually the times where I talk to him a lot, because he's just sitting waiting, waiting
Yeah.
hours for something to be done. But
Mhm.
yeah, kids definitely do keep you sidetracked as well, because now with them, it's like I'm so busy, and the check-ins we do have, he'll be like, hey, how are the kids, or how are they
Yeah.
sleeping? So kids are
Mhm.
definitely a great distraction for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I like that some people said they use oils, they like pray over their uniform. And obviously I don't see Rick's that much, so I couldn't do that, but that is cool.
That's smart.
Um, and then someone asked a question, is your husband's unique career something you have or will talk about with your kids? Simone, could you tell us a little bit, like how many kids you have and their ages, and then if you don't mind answering that?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I was funny. I was just about to ask you. I think you have voice. I was about to ask you too about your kids,
Yeah.
but yeah. So we have two kids right now. My daughter Madison, she just turned 3, and then our son Joshua, his namesake, just turned 1. And they are. I mean, well, Madison is aware. She's aware enough to know about him. She's like, Daddy's a police officer. And I mean, because clearly when she was born, that's all she knows. So she would see his uniform, and I think as she got older and started to see like careers and people with jobs on TV and, the little kid shows, she'd be able to see, Daddy's a police officer. Or anytime she sees a police car, I know when she was like a little younger, she'd be like, any police car she'd see and be like, that's Daddy. And she knows like when his car pulls up or, when he's going to work, if he comes in, or if I pick them up from school, she'll say, oh, we're going to see Daddy. Is Daddy here? And I'm like, I'll say sometimes like, oh yeah, he's here. Or, oh no, Daddy's at work. And I'll have her, go, if I know he's going to come home soon, go look out the window and she'll see his car drive up. So she's very aware. I think as they get older, because, it's all they know, I think it'll just kind of be one of those things that's just known. And if they have questions, of course, we'll answer. But yeah. How about you, your kids?
Yeah, I have two boys. Maverick is 7 and Leonidas is 4. Yeah, 2 boys. And they definitely know. We've gone to the station like at least once a year, like twice a year. And then they get to see like him in uniform and the police car and all that. And it is funny. I do remember like the first time each of them saw him in uniform, like they didn't recognize him because he does.
Really?
Like, I feel like they were kind of shocked, like, oh, that's Daddy. Because they don't. He's like a really chill, like, calm person at home, but in uniform, like, he stands up straight. He's like military style. I feel like it's a very serious person, like, in uniform. But yeah, I mean, they have fun, like, seeing the police cars and stuff, and people are always so nice at the station, and they get snacks. My boys love the snacks. They think of it as, like, the treats place. Like, I don't know.
That's funny. Do you feel like they look at that and look at him and say that that's something that they want to do? Or it seems like he doesn't, like you said, your husband, he doesn't really bring it home. So it seems like he keeps work life and home life very separate. And so they're probably just like.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. They don't talk about that. It's so cute. Maverick is old enough that he talks about like when he's a dad someday. He says that stuff, but he doesn't say when he'll be a cop someday. I think that's so cute. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's so young already to say that, But yeah, Leonidas does not talk about any. He's too little. He's just like, I don't know. He's funny, like his dad. He's like our little comedian. He was already like when he first started talking, like making jokes, but no, nothing. Like you said, maybe because they keep it so separate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Dad was a cop. I don't know if you guys had other cops in your family, but his mom didn't want him to be one. Like she really didn't, and she still he's off the streets. Like she wants him off the streets. His dad got injured on duty and was shot. So like but so I feel like Rick is the same thing. Like he doesn't really want them. And there's been, because of all of the like anti-police stuff, I mean, Rick's like, I just don't want them to do it right now. Like if things change, that would be like just in our state here, not everywhere, but.
Wow, that's crazy. And yeah, I didn't know. So I can imagine that would be traumatic. Like his mom, like seeing him now be a cop, and it's like everything I went through with your dad, and now you to be a cop. And then we all know of somebody that's probably got injured on the job, and we think, oh yeah, getting shot or is the worst coming to worst, and then that happens to your dad, and then you want to go forward and be a cop. Like, wow.
Yeah, someone said their oldest wants to be just like their dad's SWAT, and all that is so cool.
No,
I always tell Rick, like, if I was a cop, I wanted to do vice. I met this female officer that did vice. I had like so many questions for her. I was just so interested.
No, it is cool. It is cool going to, when we were at Josh's, there was like an award ceremony they had a few weeks ago or maybe a month ago at this point. And it was so cool just to be around all of that, because Josh's background was in education and mine was in criminal justice. And of course I wasn't going to be a police officer. I wanted to be an attorney at that point and go into law. But being around all those people and then seeing the women too, but like a lot of the detectives and a lot of the people that were like, even FBI, like some of those agents were there too. And I asked my husband, I was like, oh, this will be great to go into. And he was like, yeah, but everybody that's in that, like in those positions, you had to be on the streets. And I didn't know that. And I was like, geez, like if you wanted to go in those other sectors, you had to go through the academy. And I'm like, you have to go through all of that stuff to even go be in those areas. But they're so cool. I mean, I always told him, I was like, hey, do you want to be, do you want to get a canine? Like, do you want to do any of that stuff? And he's like, no. I think he definitely wants to be like an SRO soon. And I think that will be great. Like the schedule, I mean, we'll see. Hopefully that schedule, I think, will be better with kids. But yeah, I think that's really cool. Just definitely looking at the other areas and stuff like that.
Yeah, it is cool. Yeah, Rick worked in gangs like a lot. That's like his
Ooh,
specialty. But yeah, he's just applying now for another like specialized unit. But he likes to be on the streets still, which his mom is like not a fan of. But you
wow.
know, they love they love it. Then you gotta support them as a wife. So
For sure, for sure.
yeah. So you seem to really like take really good care of yourself, and you like you said this morning you were doing something. I forgot what it was, but I feel like that has to do with like the question that I got that I want to address about burnout. So you were talking about prayer, but what are like the other things that you do as a mom of very young kids? Like I feel like you're in the trenches. Like that's like the toddler stage. Preschool and toddler stage is the hardest for me. It does get easier, I feel like, but.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what else do you do to like prevent burnout?
Yeah, it's sometimes it's just like a exhale, like a breath of fresh air, just like a relief to hear somebody sometimes to say like you're in the trenches, because
Mm-hmm.
you know you're in the trenches and you say it sometimes, and then like I don't know, sometimes you have friends in different, you know, different areas of life, and it just sometimes it does get hard, but it does
Mm-hmm.
feel good sometimes just to hear somebody say you're in the trenches. This is that time. Like it just is what it is. And
Yeah.
me and my husband talk about it, and we say like, you know, times won't always be like this. I try to enjoy it, but it is the trenches, especially with the husband working that working shift
Mm-hmm.
work. But I definitely feel like I'm so thankful that they go to school or daycare, or just, you know, they
Yeah.
go to an early learning center during the day.
Yeah.
And I do work from home. I work for a law firm, and I'm
Okay.
still working full time, but I'm able
Okay.
to work from home,
Yeah.
which makes it, you know, just
Mm.
it's amazing. It's a godsend. We always say like it is a total blessing right
Yeah.
now. And God
Yeah.
has a way of doing things the way that
Mm-hmm.
He does them, because with them being able to go to school and then me working from home, it definitely
Yeah.
gives me the time and the space to have like,
Mm-hmm.
if I do need to have a moment to myself where, you know, the burnout, you
Yeah.
know, if they're working the long weekends, you know, we just got off of his long weekday shift where he's
Mm-hmm.
working, you know, the weekends, and I have to have them
Yeah.
by myself the
Yeah.
weekends,
Yeah.
two young toddlers. I know that I can get burnt out, but when Monday comes, like I joke with their teachers. Friday comes and like, oh, have a great weekend. And I'm like, for me, that's when the work starts, because
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
I'm like, for me, I'm
Yeah.
like, that's my week is
Yeah.
Saturday and Sunday or whatever days they're off. And so when they go, Monday comes, it's like
Mm-hmm.
my time to like, I go to Starbucks after
Mm-hmm.
I drop them off around 8:45, 9. I'm
Mm-hmm.
right in the Starbucks line, which is right across the road from their school. And then I'm walking the aisles of Target in the morning. And it's
Yeah.
funny because either that or like Walgreens, I go to my like my little stores and get
Mm-hmm.
my, you know,
Mm-hmm.
the stuff that moms need, whether
Yeah.
it's milk, bread, clothes,
Yeah.
wipes, pull-ups, diapers. And that is literally my time. And before, you know, before we got on, I had like
Mm-hmm.
my lash appointment, and I told myself that, you know, hair and lashes are like the
Mm-hmm.
main things that I do. I'm not a person to get my nails done. I get pedicures, but
Yeah.
I don't get like my nails done. But I told myself before I had my son,
Mm-hmm.
I used to wear like makeup every day, and I was like, not happening. I said one thing I will do for myself is I will stay consistent with getting my lashes done. And that's actually been pretty nice, because when you're laying there, your eyes are closed. So
Thanks.
sometimes I'm falling asleep, and that's like my time where I'm forced to take a nap.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I feel like that is like the time where I can really recoup. Whether it's that or, you know, getting a pedicure or just getting my coffee and walking through
Yeah.
Target. Those are definitely my times where it's like, all right, let me
Mm-hmm.
re-energize before I have to get back in here.
Yeah.
And yeah, that burnout sometimes can be like inevitable, you know, you getting close to that line.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, how about you? Do you feel like with your kids at their age now, you feel like you're out of the trenches? Like, do you still have those burnout moments?
Yeah, I have those moments. I mean, I think Leonidas is still not school age. He is going to go to kinder in the fall because he's turning 5 in August. So he'll be early, and we're just
Okay.
going to see how the year goes. But I feel like everybody says once your kids are all in school, that's like when things get changed. And even research shows like your relationship satisfaction goes up just in general, not like police wife life, but just in general, because there's less stress. Like they're more independent. They can actually help, right? Like right now, I
Mm.
organize their drawers, and Rick, like we both like them to help put away their clothes. But I was like, Rick, I haven't asked them because I know, like, once they do it, it's going to be a mess. So, you know, their actual ability to like help it, Maverick sometimes because he's 7. And he like has more chores and stuff than Leonidas. But I think I just remember like the baby and toddler years because you're literally just chasing. You're chasing them. They're learning to walk, changing diapers, sleepless nights. Like the sleepless nights are what killed me. And because your husband's working this crazy schedule, it's all on you potentially. Like, and I work too, but I do have a flexible kind of schedule. I'm a professor, so I like teach certain times, and then they always have
Yeah.
had like part-time daycare or preschool. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's why like I call that the trenches, and where I'm at now is different because they are older and like they are sleeping through the night, and they're, you know, like there's
Mhm.
a schedule that I can like a stability to like our routine that's nice that I feel like when you have a toddler, like you just don't know, or a baby, you don't know what's really going to happen. And
Mhm.
I remember, and we didn't have a lot of family around, so it was like, and I had just moved here and we had Maverick to LA, so I met some fellow moms, and like I feel like that's what saved me is just you need people, like whether it be family,
Mhm.
like I needed adult interaction because I didn't have it with Rick, like working so much at the beginning, and even now, but I feel like before I that like really helped me is to like just meet other people that even if they weren't police wives, there are other moms that are like going through it. That
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of transition, and to not have a lot of family is hard. Like I have family around, and but the only and then it's funny. There's that meme that's like you need a break, but then you don't trust anyone with your kids,
yeah. That I do
and
think
that
that's somewhat too. Yeah.
yeah, it's like I trust the only person at this point that I really trust, like to watch them without
Mm-hmm.
me outside of school, and I think that's why I really take advantage, and I'm so extremely thankful for their school because
Yeah.
even finding schools and stuff was hard. But our church has like an early learning center that they opened, and that was a godsend. Literally, they opened, I think, a month before Madison was born.
Oh my gosh.
And so she ended up being the first like infant in their infant room.
Wow.
And it literally God lined things up perfectly. But it's I can imagine it was just so hard not having support and like, you know, doing that on your own. And you mentioned with the sleepless nights and then the shift work. I think you posted a few things before about your brain. That was one of the more recent ones you had, and your brain is just
Yeah.
everywhere. Even now, I'm
Better.
like,
Yeah.
what day? What do you work? What time? And your brain literally feels like, I just tell my husband, I'm like, my brain feels like scrambled eggs because I don't know what's happening. And then you get in this mode where, like you said, you're doing everything that then when they get home, your mind then has to flip to like, I have help. I can relax.
Yeah.
But then you
Exactly.
can't relax because you don't, you know, it's just, it's like a on and off. And your body, it's like you're on that fight and flight mode that you
Yeah.
can't like switch it off. So that when they get home, you're like, okay, wait, I have help. And they're like, okay, you can go in the back, you can relax. But then
Yeah.
it takes a moment for you to relax because you're just so used to like, okay, wait, when do I got to get up? When do I have to prepare again?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I can imagine just all of those transitions with you moving and then not having the support. I can see how that was just a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say like nowadays, when this a friend of mine told me this, and she was so right. She has 4 kids, 4 boys, and she's like, as they get older, one thing gets easier and one thing gets harder. Like, and I feel like as they get older now, it's because they have like their own things, like their activities. So it's like it's not just and school. School is a big deal. Like even kindergarten, like people make fun of me, but like it's such a high expectation. It's a really big growth curve. So it was like they're going from like really low expectation of like what they have to do to like now you're reading and writing, like that's it. Like it's I feel like it was a lot,
Wow.
but you're responsible for that too, right? It's not just the teachers. So yeah, so I feel like now it's just the juggle of like keeping track of my schedule, their schedule, Rick's schedule, like all of that in
Ooh,
my head.
I
And
didn't
you're
think about
like
that now.
so it's like it's easier because they're more independent and I never used to do my hair. I remember like a stage where I could do that was amazing because like when they're in the toddler stage, they're just all on top of me, and I don't really care about makeup. But I always like to do my hair, but in the morning it used to just be like buns every day, and then now I can do it. That's lovely. But you know, so like there's things that are easier, but then it's all now. And then I remember my mother-in-law coming over one time to visit, and she was like, they were eating cereal in the morning, and she's like, what happened? Because I do try to focus on like healthy nutrition with them. And I'm like, well, they ask for it, you know, and like, you have to pick your battles with these little ones. So
Oh
I don't
yeah.
do it every day, but if they want it sometimes, that's fine.
Yeah. And especially when you get to that, like when you're on the verge of like that burnout area,
Yeah.
one thing that I've had to learn is like, as you said, you're very much so like hyper focused on like those little specifics, like, oh, not too much screen time or
Mm-hmm.
making sure you eat this. And then I told myself automatically, I said, you know what, Simone, you had a great foundation with feeding them fruits and vegetables. Like they still eat a lot of fruit. If
Yeah.
anything, I will stuff them with fruit because
Yeah.
I'm like, that's great. Fruit. Now they're in a phase now where Madison started eating a lot of vegetables. Then she stopped totally, and now they both are scarfing down vegetables again.
Cool.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's amazing. And I tell myself when the weekend comes, one way to like relieve stress is like order pizza.
Yeah.
I will
Yeah.
order
Yeah.
pizza along with, and they'll still have their fruit, or maybe some of the frozen vegetables that I just make on the stove really quickly. But I'm like, order pizza, and then in the morning it'll either be cereal or I'll do like pancakes. Like I'll make
Yeah.
pancakes sometimes the night before. Like if he's working day shift during the weekends, I will make pancakes and I'll make small ones and put them in a baggie, put them in the fridge. And in the morning, it's great because they can also self feed. So I know as they're older, you don't have to worry about feeding them.
Yeah.
But, coming out of the baby stage, now he's at that stage where he can feed himself, give him a little pancake, and he can eat that while I'm doing
Yeah.
something else. And of course, she can eat herself. So I'm definitely learned, like, you know what? Cereal, it might have to be cereal some days, ordering pizza some days, and it just is what it is.
I know, I agree. Like, I started this routine on Friday nights that, like, we go out and I plan it. And it's like summer now for me, so it did kind of change. But I feel like because we worked all week, Maverick had school all week, it's so chaotic with like school and all the activities, and we're like all over the place. And then I would do takeout on Friday because it's like, I know it's a break for me. It's lovely. And
That's
then
good.
we call it a picnic dinner, but really it's like a TV dinner. We eat by the TV. And it's like, oh, it's so nice. So yeah, everybody, you have to give yourself a break and like relax. And yeah, if your kids are eating vegetables, like celebrate it, whatever it is. Like Leonidas is pickier, but he loves green beans. He will eat them like fries. I'm like, awesome. I will make those every day for you, like whatever.
That's good. That's
Yeah,
good. And I know when you look forward to like even being able to say like you've penciled in Friday to be takeout.
yeah,
So it's
yeah.
like, it kind of helps you during the week sometimes to know
Mhm.
when you have a break coming because it gives you that motivation to like push through and you're like, you know what? I don't have to worry about this. I don't have to worry about this because Friday we're getting takeout. And I know that helps. That helps a lot.
Yes. Okay, so a while back, I want to address the questions. I don't know if they're here anymore, but they said, like, how many years have your husbands been a police officer, I guess? And then what was your reaction when they stated they wanted to be a cop was another question. I feel like those go together.
Okay. It's funny. I should know the years, but again, scrambled eggs. um, Uh, I think he started 2017 or 18. No, we got married in 17. I think he started 2018, like 18 to 19. So he's been about 4 or 5 years now.
Mm-hmm.
I would say I think 4 years, about 4 years. And yeah, it's been. What was the second question? They said when they started.
They
Oh, and
said,
how
like,
they told us.
yeah. Yeah, how did they, oh, what did you, no, how did you react? I think was the question when they told you.
Wow. Yeah. So I can't even, I think at that time, his, like I said, one of his best friends was a police officer.
Mm-hmm.
And again, his background was in education. So I'm like, I just had never thought that
Mm-hmm.
that would be something that you would even think of. But I think what it was and you're in the teaching environment, but you're, higher level classes. He was teaching, like he was like in middle school and he was in high school at that time.
Yeah.
And I think he always loved interacting with students and like
Mm-hmm.
helping to like inspire kids and
Mm-hmm.
just that type of stuff. But I think he was telling me like in schools you don't have that much autonomy, like it's
Yeah.
so
Mm-hmm.
structured and sometimes you can't. I think his way of being able to talk and help the students, he had like a after school program with like young boys that he would help teach them about career options and just how to carry yourself as a young man. He just felt like he didn't have that much autonomy, so he wanted I guess because too his best friend was a cop, he saw like, oh my God, this is a great way to really interact and help and to make an impact. And I guess especially being, you know, Black, he saw that there was like a gap
Yeah.
between, you know, the Black community and then law enforcement, and then like, hey, who's there interacting with our people in the communities? Or like, you know, people can be really hostile to people who don't look like us coming into our communities. And then, you know, he wanted to really just be able to have a, you know, a positive impact. And so because of his friend being a police officer, I think he saw and was like, okay, this is something I want to do. And then he first told me when he wanted to go, I think they had like an interest meeting or one of those informational sessions, and he told me about it. And I was just like, honestly, in my head, I was like, yeah, no. Like I like face to face, I was like, oh, that's cool. In my head, I was like, God, no. I was like, do not let this happen. Like, and you know, it's such a lengthy process to be a police officer. Like, yeah, you got to go to the informational session. You have to apply. You have to do the background check. You have to do the drug test. You have to do the fitness test. Like, it's so many things. In my head, I was like, God, you have so many ways to intervene here. Get it done. This is happening. To be honest, I was like, yeah, that's great. And in my head, I'm like, don't let this work out. Like, don't get it. And he got it. And I was just like, okay. You know, but I guess as I started learning and when they have those like family and friend events, I was just like, okay, this is cool. Like, this is nice. And because then again, I had a criminal justice background, I was just intrigued as it was, because that was something I was always interested in. So I think I was definitely worried at first, but then the more that I learned about it, I kind of was just like, okay, this is nice. Like, this is cool. And then when you look at the finances, you know, the pay and all that stuff, the benefits, that stuff is great. So that was a bonus. But yeah, I think I was shocked. But initially I was like, yeah, no, that's not happening.
That is, I so appreciate like your honest reaction, because there are wives that follow me are like, they appear to be like, just they've always supported police, that this is a part of their life, like a part of their identity. But yeah, I was similar. Like okay, so Rick and I have only been married 9 years, but he's been a cop for like 16 now. So but we dated
Ooh.
10 years before, like on and off, because I was moving for school and stuff before that. So I like knew him before he was a cop, way before, and we met like in college. And then he was just going to college for psychology. Like, he was thinking about getting his doctorate, which he did. He moved out to LA, became a cop, and went into a PhD program at the same time. Like, he's a crazy person. He's kind of, you know, he's kind of unique. Yeah. And then, so he did eventually get it, but it took him a long time to get it because he was working too. And then he still remained a cop. But I feel like it's cool for him to like have that background and connect with him on that. But yeah, I felt like, well, you're getting all this education, like go do something that's safer, you know? So, but he told me, I think we're engaged, but maybe not, but I think we were. And he was like, I wrote this in that devotional, and I was like, this story, because it's like a huge growth. I asked him, I was like, okay, I'm writing this book about like our come to Jesus, like growth moments in our marriage. What was that for you? And he said this. He said, I remember asking you, I just need 5 years. Like, just support me for 5 years in this career. Because he already was in it and he loved it. And like, had just been dating. That's different than like fully committing. And I was like, okay, I can do that. I can do 5 years. Like, little did I know that like, over time, I would fully embrace it and like have his back, you know, but it took me time, especially from like my background. And it's also opened my eyes, right? Like, I mean, I was a social worker, and sometimes you do work with cops, but you don't really get to see that they're the first ones there usually in a lot of situations. So I love those stories, and he will tell me the stories where it's kind of like social work stuff, where he's really helping families and stuff. And I love that. But so like I said, he doesn't tell me everything, but if he knows I like it, then he'll tell me.
Yeah, no, I can't wait to get into your devotional, and thank you for sending me that. Like, I know you posted a snippet about it, and I can't wait. And I hope you talk more about that, because I have so many questions about that specifically and that whole dynamic, because as you said, he was a cop before. So I don't want to go so long and ask you so many questions about that, but I can only imagine like when you were dating. I mean, it seems now, of course, because he keeps work and home life separate, I can't imagine him really even bringing that up. Like, I feel like when you guys were dating, you probably like, yeah, you were a cop, but you had no, like, I feel like it was like definitely totally separate. Because I wanted to ask, like, how was that dating? And like, did you even think like, oh, if this goes further, I'm going to have to, you know, support this? Like, did you think about that, or did you have any apprehension with that?
I mean, okay, so I loved him first, right? Like I didn't know he was gonna become a cop. So I think like I always loved him and I always will, like no matter his career. And then that became a part of him. And that, okay, I
Mhm.
want to tell you, you should write one yourself because it was really cool to look back. And like the fact that people have followed you from the beginning of your marriage is super cool. Like, but I mean, to think about those moments yourself is like, I feel like it was therapeutic for me and it was cool to like document it. But I feel like I I didn't there were moments before I think we were already engaged though. Like yeah, when we were dating, I wasn't conscious like oh, I'm gonna have to deal with this. I know we didn't have kids. You know, there's so much other stuff that comes up. Like I was just able to think of myself and we were kind of able to be selfish, like in living our
Mhm.
lives, but still dating and when we were dating. And that was like when we got engaged that I think things were more serious for me.
Mhm.
And then we were long distance. So I had my first professor job in Hawaii and he was out in LA. And in my career, like you kind of do have to go where they take you. And oh gosh, I know, darn, I had to go to Hawaii. I kept thinking about that. But
Great.
I didn't get a job in LA, so I went out there and then we were long distance for 2 years. So it was actually like we were long distance the first year of our marriage, and that first year we were engaged. And it was good that he asked me to marry him. We were already kind of like at that point I knew like, okay, he's for me. Like, we need to stop fooling around. Like, I'm done with school now. I'm starting my career. But then he did ask me like right after I moved there, I think, to be like also like this is serious. So don't like quit on me when we're doing long distance.
Yeah.
So yeah, I remember that time it being hard because we were long distance, had different time schedule on work, and so I think if you're juggling that in any way of like having opposite schedules, there has to be a sacrifice on one person. And for me, it was me because I told him I was like, call me when you get off. So he would get off when I meet in the middle of the night for me, and I was like, just call
Mhm.
me so we could talk every day. Like I just want to talk to you every day, even if I lose sleep. Um, and that kind of helped. And then I started learning. I remember this conversation like specifically. So oh, the Dorner case happened then, and that's in the book too. So like that was where this LAPD officer who was retired, he was also a Marine veteran. He kind of lost his mind and he started attacking like police families and police officers. So that happened, and Rick
Cool.
texted me one day. I was awake, and he was like, "I gotta go in today. I'm called in. There's somebody shooting up cops." And I would say that was like the
Great.
first, like,
Thanks.
what was that?
I'd be like, great, thanks. Like, I have to go in. Somebody's shooting up cops. I have to go in.
Yeah, I was like, thank you. Yeah, but then I like Google and like, okay, I didn't even have TV there. Like, I was just like, okay, I'm gonna Google like what's going on in LA, and I Google it, and like, yeah, I felt like super alone. I wish I had this community back then because
Mhm.
that's also the first time I saw like the police hate, like in the comments of these articles, they were like, yeah, F the
Mhm.
cops, like good for him. And I was like, oh my gosh. You know, so I think when we're engaged, I started to see that stuff. And then also, I remember at night, I'd be like, so how was work? And Rick would be like, it's good. That's like, he doesn't like talk about works, right? And I
Yeah.
remember like I think it was during Dorner, I was just extra needy. Like I said, I don't usually worry, but because that stuff was happening,
Mhm.
yeah, so I was like, tell me something, like what happened tonight? And he's like, honestly, that's when he was working. He was working in South Central gangs, which is like a very dangerous area, very low income area. And he was like,
Wow.
they just keep shooting each other. I don't want to talk about that. Like, it's not fun to talk about. And that
Okay.
I will never forget that. I was like, okay, I get you. And like, it wasn't just that moment. There are like other moments where I learned he loves his work, but he wants me to be a separate part of his life, which is fine, you know? And like he
Mhm.
loves being a dad and being around our boys. And like, so anyway, I feel like I went on a rant about
No,
your
that was
question,
fun.
but
I'm learning so much. And again, this is like, I think I have one friend, her name's Alex. She was in one of my, you have the mom groups, the due date groups when you're pregnant. I mean, I don't know if you've been in them, but
yeah,
they're
yeah.
so common. Yeah, the due date groups with your babies and the due date group with Madison, we're all very close. Like, I don't even really I have the due date groups with Josh, but the due date group with Madison and all the moms there, we are all very, very close to this day. And there's one mom there and her husband's a police officer. And that's like really the only person that I know really that, I at
Mhm.
least, have shared like information with about like family and stuff like that. So hearing you share that information is just like, it is eye opening. And especially because my husband is not, he's very open with, I mean, he keeps them separate, but I'm very much like, oh, what happened today? And a lot of times because it's redundant, like, oh, traffic stops or whatever, whatever. He
Mm-hmm.
won't share much unless it's like something interesting that day, or like, oh, I
Yeah.
came across this or came across this, or, you
Mm-hmm.
know, interesting things. So it's just nice to hear like, oh, wow, different perspectives, because then that even gets my mind going like, wow, I wonder if Josh ever feels like sometimes, you know, there's stuff he doesn't want to talk about. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he's very vocal if he doesn't want to talk about it, but you know, it just helped, especially I think the post you posted on Father's Day, I just reposted to my stories, the one where it's like they're tired. Like, one thing I did have to realize is that men a lot of times don't talk as
Mm-hmm.
much as we do.
Yeah.
Sometimes, especially about their feelings, like sometimes you have to make sure you create the space for
Mm-hmm.
them to want to talk about these things. But one thing that used to frustrate me is like Josh would come in sometimes and just get on the game, like
Mm-hmm.
get on his Xbox and just
Okay.
play,
Yeah.
play, play. And I've had to tell myself now, like, I'm like, sometimes I'm a little bit more lenient, as long as like if the kids aren't here and I don't need like help with the kids, or
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, like we have to focus on them, I try to give him that space to just be on it, because
Yeah.
I realize like, yo, he's at work
Yeah.
all day talking to
Mm-hmm.
people or dealing with just negativity. I remember when he was in Wilmington, he would just say, yo, this job is just negative. Like, you deal with people and it's just negativity.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
they're negative to you as being the police officer, and then you're just, no situation is positive, like whether it be domestic violence or like a burglary. Like, he's just like, it's so negative. And so when he comes home and plays the game, like sometimes I try to be mindful of like, yeah, even though he like verbalizes like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, today my day was like this, my day was like this, it's like sometimes Simone, maybe he just wants to zone out and just do something that he enjoys. And I know fantasy football is
Mm-hmm.
one thing that he like loves, and then like playing Madden or 2K on his game, it's like I try to be mindful of like, okay, just let him zone out, because God knows what he had to deal with on those 12 hours and what he had to hear, you know what I mean? So I definitely, it's refreshing hearing your perspective. And since I'm still like, we still follow each other and it's still a new social media relationship, I'm definitely just, you know, eager to just hear more of your story as you share it. I'm sorry if I'm looking down, I can only see like the questions. I had to log on. I'm on my iPad, but I had to log in on my phone so I can go on the live and see the
Cool.
questions, because I haven't been able to see
Oh,
people's
cool.
comments.
I know. Someone said, Chelsea asked a while ago, and I asked her to clarify your question because she asked, like, talk about preparation for the life. And she was saying, like, when I was talking about, like, the story, the call from him saying he had to go in. And so I think, like, yeah, and actually you said you were able to go to like some meetup groups when he first became a cop. I didn't, because I was long distance. I was like, I don't know. I remember like random holiday parties we've been to, but I really just didn't. I just now I'm starting to connect with like the other LAPD wives, but it's like very recent. So
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. It was, and that was like, I, to be honest, like right now at this point, I don't know, like I'm not familiar with his colleagues, like,
mm-hmm.
or wives. Like, I think in Wilmington, because Wilmington was smaller, I
Mm-hmm.
was kind of friends with some of his colleagues like on social media, and then I don't really know that, I wasn't really close or really know of a lot of other ones who had like families that were married and had families. It would just be those meetups. And then even now that he's at state, I think it was like one time, that first initial, it was like that family informational session where you fill out your stuff for benefits and they tell you about the cop fund and all
Yeah.
that stuff, that I met some of the other wives. But to this day, like I can't really remember like, you know, their names, or like I haven't stayed in touch. So
Mm-hmm.
um yeah, this, I know it definitely helps having this platform now for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Somebody said their husband works out after work. So Rick does too. Like, we talk about our own self-care, but like you were saying, the video games or like other ways. I mean, Rick loves working out. So I've learned like that's his thing and he needs
Hmm.
it. And like I feel like he works out like 5, 6 days a week and it is healing for him, and good. It's healthy. So, but yeah, that means that we have to give him time to do that. And that can be hard on wives. Like,
Yeah.
right now in my life, I can do it. I would say when we first had Maverick, I remember he was doing CrossFit and he was gonna like try out for, I think it was SWAT. Yeah. I don't think I have that in the book. I should have had this one because I was kind of a jerk and I don't mind talking about that. Like I needed him home. I was like this full on, I was a very anxious first time mom, like right, just had moved here, didn't have a lot of support besides him. And anytime he wanted to leave besides work, I was like, no, I need you here. Like I need your support.
Yes.
I think it's okay to like ask for that too, you know. And people have asked me like, well, what does he do for you? Because I always talk about things that I do for him. Yeah, he didn't go up for SWAT then. Like it wasn't a good time for us as a family. And he does not make me feel bad about that. You know, there's other times
Wow.
for him in his career. And I think, yeah, and I do feel like I could have been better. But oh well, it's over now. I don't know.
No, it's that's great. Yeah, that's oh my God, you're bringing up such great points, and this is all just so eye opening to me because, like I said, again, this is my first time really talking about these things openly with other people in the community. So even reading people's comments, like, and that is a good point. It's like, okay, if you want to give them time to decompress or like to play the game, how do you do that with like kids, or like how do you voice things like you just said, like, oh, it's not a great time for this. And I remember my husband, he loves working out. I mean, now that we have like two little kids, it's so hard to get that in because now he's just so tired. Playing the game is like his main outlet. But when we had Madison, I remember he was doing community workouts. And so it's like, yeah, like you're working lengthy times during the week, and then you want to take, and then they need, I don't want to say they want to take, but then they need more time, additional time outside of the house. And it's just like,
Yeah.
how do you navigate that? And I think those are great topics to talk about. Like, how do you navigate trying to find, literally for them, work-life balance, but then life also meaning needing that time to like recoup from work.
Yeah.
And that sometimes that's not even like life as far as household, because it's like then that's something kind of separate, and then but that still then takes time away from household time.
Yeah.
So that's definitely like I think it's great that for wives to definitely talk about how they navigate that, because it's hard. There's no handbook or there's no really blueprint to say, oh, this is how you work this out, especially when you're in the middle or you're in the trenches when you're building the family. Like, how do you work that out between like doctor's appointments and dealing with little kids that might not sleep through the night? Like, yeah, it's crazy. I definitely look forward to reading more about your devotional. And like, when you wrote that, you said you wrote that like as you were going along the journey.
Well, okay. I have reflected on the time. No, I wasn't writing it the whole time. No, but I've written like little snippets that are included in there. Like I elaborated more, but just because a lot of times I'll make like these funny reels, and then I try to get, not always, but serious in the caption, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
Okay. And then, so I'll write, whenever I've written examples of like actual things that happen, people love it. So I was like, okay, I'll just put them all. So I would try to like save them, as I wrote them. And then, yeah, I hadn't read the other Police Wife devotionals. I know they're out there. And the reason I didn't is since I didn't want to like copy their style exactly. Like I want it to be my own, but I knew kind of the format. And sometimes it's like Bible verse, story, or some kind of example or something, and then a prayer. So I was like, well, perfect. And it just made sense for me to put it like chronological. And then because we dated, people have asked me like, how did he change? And that was cool because I can answer that. I mean, so I tried to like have the whole story. And then even Rick's dad, like him being a cop and interacting with him like for the first time. So yeah, I wasn't writing it the whole time, but I had to think back. And honestly, like I said, I'm so glad I did. And like, I totally would encourage everybody to do it because I'm going to forget later. You know what I mean? Like, I think the longer it is, like if you have to look back like 30 years ago, you're going to forget those details, So I was like, Rick, it'd be so cool. And like 10 years later to like write another one on our other, like whatever else I learned. And I wrote it for other people, right? So I wrote examples I think can represent themes that other people have dealt with, like I said, because I always am like talking to people on here. So I'm hoping it's not just for me, even though I loved it too. It's for everybody else too. So.
Yeah, no, that's great. I can't wait. I definitely can't wait to read it again. You said there's so many out there. I haven't even heard of any. This is like my first one. Like I've heard of other devotionals, but I've never heard of police. And maybe I haven't looked into it. Maybe I still feel so new in this, or maybe I'm just so consumed with the kids that I just haven't thought about it. But I can't wait to read into yours for sure.
And I wouldn't have had time. Our kids are like 2 years and 3 months apart, right? So when they were 1 and 3, never would I have done this. Never. Unless I had to do it for work, because I write for work. Okay, fine. But like never would I have done something like for fun outside of that. So I just feel like, again, like you're in that time, and then like a few years from now, you'd be like, oh, okay. Like you have a little bit more time. Like they can entertain themselves more and stuff like that. But Yeah, but I think I'm gonna let's wrap it up because I feel like I've kept you on like way longer than I
No, it's
thought.
fine.
So but yeah, thank you so much. Hopefully you'll get lots of new followers and like you guys definitely follow Simone. It's such a positive account and I'm always like
Thank you.
I always want to share that with people, just positivity out there. So
Thank you. Thank you. No, it was great speaking with you. We'll have to do this again.
yeah, definitely. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Bye.